Why is everybody in the world so invested in Africa never uniting? Why? If it wasn't something that would change the world overnight, if it wasn't something that was a threat to the existing powers, they wouldn't care. People don't care if goldfish unite. Have you ever heard of anybody making sure that frogs don't unite? You ever heard of anybody caring about that? No, because there's no threat to anybody. People don't even think, like, the fact you laughed when I said it is because it is absolutely irrelevant. Well, you are relevant. I am relevant. And together we are a power. And that's why people are invested in making sure that we don't understand the relevance of each other.
I like that. How Ghana? Like, how did you end up in Ghana? What was the conversation like?
Listen, Ghana is the door. It's the gate. It's where you come first when you arrive at the time of your life that you realize you need to understand where you are from which roots you sprouted, where in Africa your spirit originates. No matter where that ends up being, there are many, many, many nations in this continent. But I believe that Ghana is the door. It is the gate. So you start here, and from here, you find where else you might have connection and roots. So in America, we have been intentionally disconnected from our people. Then I believe, at the very minimum,
what do you mean by intentionally?
We have been intentionally disconnected from our people. I believe that we have an obligation to ourselves to know ourselves, to know more about ourselves, and then you can decide how much you want to engage that. But it can't diminish your love of America or what you've accomplished as an individual because you now recognize that you're a part of a bigger whole. It doesn't make you a lesser single. It really expands you from my perspective, but everybody has to come to that on their own. We know what was intentional about it. We know that this is not a mistake that we are disconnected from the continent, from the diaspora, because they would hope those who would colonize Africa and those who would enslave Africans in America, that connection would be broken so that the bond couldn't be strong, so that if revolution comes, we don't have the ability to overcome the oppressor. I'm not leaving. I'm staying.
Did you by any chance did a DNA test to see where your, most of your DNA is coming from, or you've not done that?
No, I don't trust these white folks. I'm not about to just give them my DNA. You have to get a court order for my DNA. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even remember all the stuff that I might have done. People already are getting arrested for shit they don't even remember. There's a lot of things I don't remember. I am certainly not about to volunteer my DNA to any private industry, and I'm not giving it to the government unless you demand it. So if you want mine, you got to come get it. Absolutely not. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it with legwork, the hard way. I'm gonna do it with connection, which I have a lot more trust in than somebody's lab and
I like that
digital reservoir of DNA. And so when Deontay Wilder is talking about 400 years, well, yes, I know what he's referencing because I'm a learned black American and have been living that experience as he has. And he was living it in the deep South. He's from Alabama. God bless. I'm so grateful I'm not from the deep South and certainly not Alabama because the history there is wicked. Because look how trifling these superpower leaders are all over the world. Are they special? Are they advanced? Are you culture shocked looking at Donald Trump or Putin? No, absolutely not. Are they somehow genius and we're idiots? Clearly not. You don't need to be all that intelligent, do you, to run a massive major superpower country. And if you think that you don't have the capacity here with all these different leaders in all these different African nations to create a superpower of a continent, then you're insane.
And I want to show you one thing. Let's shake it one more time. Now in Ghana, when we do that and you're letting go, we snap it like that.
Okay, you got that from us. First of all, you got that from us. I appreciate you think you made that up. I'll tell you what, that's black American shit right there. So take that. I'm not even going to charge you for that. Let's run with that. That's the root on the other side of it.
I like that. Hello guys, welcome back again to another amazing episode, and this is the Diaspora Transition episode where we have dialogue even with people relocating or even visiting the continent of Africa from the diaspora, either being the UK, US, etc., you name it, any other Caribbean country. Listen guys, today you will not believe who I have here on the show today. This gentleman If you don't know him, if you're a sports lover, boxing, and you don't know who he is, then I don't believe you. You're not a sports lover. He is sensational. He's a celebrity, and people know him to this day. So he goes by Radio Raheem. Thank you for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for welcoming me. Yes, we are here in Ghana and Accra. This is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for me to engage in a local production, listening to past episodes that you have. You're an excellent host, and I'm looking forward to talking to you. And, meeting you earlier today was very pleasant. You got great energy. I saw the introduction. I was like, all right, let me see if this guy's got any chops. No, you've got the energy.
Thank you.
This should be a fun little chat,
Yeah, I like that. And shout outs to my bro. I appreciate it. He connected us.
Yeah, Cheeky Dave.
Yeah,
they know what it is. Me and Dave have been friends for a long time. He covers boxing, obviously, as well in the UK. We worked with the same sponsor for a while, and Cheeky has been absolutely instrumental in introducing me to some people here in Ghana and showing me where the good time is to be had, because Cheeky likes to have a good time.
I know.
And so I asked him to introduce me to some connects, people who are doing work here or who are artists or have interesting influence on the community here, and your name came up. He immediately sent the details. I think he sent mine to you.
Yeah.
He reached out, and I'm happy that you did, because this is exactly the kind of outlet that I'm looking to learn about. So you're interviewing me, but I'm also experiencing and learning from you.
Right.
And I like to see how people get it done here.
Okay.
So there needs to be a voice, no matter where we are in the world, and those who create not just a space for themselves to speak, but a megaphone for others who have something to say, I believe are important in every society. So you're doing an important work. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Now, wait, how Ghana? How did you end up in Ghana? What was the conversation like?
Listen, Ghana is the door. It's the gate. It's where you come first when you arrive at the time of your life that you realize you need to understand where you are from which roots you sprouted, where in Africa your spirit originates. No matter where that ends up being, there are many, many, many nations in this continent. But I believe that Ghana is the door. It is the gate. So you start here, and from here, you find where else you might have connection and roots. So I believe that the timing of one's life is no accident. I've been wanting to experience the continent my whole life to varying degrees. It became more or less important depending on what time of my life it was, but it was never something that I thought wouldn't happen. I just knew I had to be here at some stage in life, and when that opportunity arose, I would take it.
Wow.
By just God's hand, the timing of life, fate, coincidence, if you believe that things are that. After the Dubois fight, when he fought Anthony Joshua at Wembley, an incredible night of boxing. I was there to work. I covered it. I was in the camp of Daniel Dubois, who was trained by Don Charles, who invited me into the camp to shoot an embedded kind of documentary about the build-up to the fight. So I became close with the camp, and because I'm a journalist, I am very seldom able to root for one fighter or the other. I make sure that I remain neutral, and I'm not invested in one guy winning over the other. But in this case, by happenstance, I absolutely was Team Dubois. So I was able to go to this fight, still as a journalist, but not at all having to be reserved about who I wanted to win. And Anthony Joshua, who I've covered for a decade, who's a great friend, who is an incredible ambassador for the sport. He brought British boxing to global level for my generation. Like, before I was in the UK, I was not interested in covering UK boxing.
Really?
So I was aware of it, but it wasn't, because it wasn't at the level. There was no superstar there that would draw, and anybody who got big enough came to America to make their money and make their fame. And Anthony Joshua was the first that drew me over. That was like, okay, this guy is bigger than in UK boxing and is taking it to another level. He is a superstar.
Right.
And so I was able to cover his fight, and that was what was the catalyst for me being a presenter in the United Kingdom. Just the fact that he is and was an ambassador in the way that he is and was changed the sport, because it made the United Kingdom a destination for certain fights. You had to cover Anthony Joshua fights. I certainly did. And so that changed my life. He didn't know me. It wasn't something that he did for me
your life from afar. Yeah.
by any intention, but that is what you can accomplish when you are excellent in your field, when you are dominant in a sport, and when you have the personality and the communication skills, the charm, the energy, the attraction of the fans, and the ability to be somebody that people look up to and want to see. That's what Anthony Joshua is to British boxing. And so I always make sure whenever I mention him that I go this far in making sure that you understand the magnitude of this man and the impact of this athlete. Because one thing that is also very characteristic of the United Kingdom press and even the fans of boxing on whole is that when they think you're down, they kick you. When they think that you're weak, they rub the salt in the wound. They want to enjoy your fall. And if Joshua falls, then so too does British boxing and the champion who really brought it to a global stage in this era. So they should just be careful to not slag the guy off, is what I'm saying. And even though on the night I was rooting for Dubois and absolutely was embedded in his camp, and I was grateful to Don Charles for giving me that opportunity, and we've only become closer since then. He came to Ghana when I came. This is the first time I've come to the continent at all, but Don Charles is Nigerian born. He spent the first 13 of his years of his life in that country, and then he came to England and not just made a name for himself, but made an impact on the global sport, is now the trainer of the IBF heavyweight champion who won that title and then defended it against the golden boy of the United Kingdom, everybody's favorite champion for the last 10 years, in a massive upset. All of the United Kingdom and global boxing journalists thought that Dubois was about to get knocked out, that he wasn't going to last more than 3 or 4 rounds. The right hand of Joshua was too much, all the things. And this was all stacked up against Don Charles as a trainer to not let that get into his fighter's head, and also to test his own acumen and his ability to train somebody in that big of a disadvantage, as the global press would have you believe, to win a fight like that and make the underdog, the guy who was on the bottom of the totem pole of champions, rise to the occasion. And he, in fact, did that on that night. And so you can only imagine how much energy it took for Don Charles to get to that point with his fighter, the training camp that was necessary, all the hard work and strategizing and personalities and media obligations and everything that goes into preparing your fighter for a fight night of that magnitude, to a record-breaking attendance at Wembley Stadium, which is not any small feat. There have been massive events at Wembley Stadium.
What is the capacity?
This was, I believe it was 90, and I think there were 93. I'm not sure if that is accurate. I'm sure it was 93 that they got in there, and that broke records, right? That's a major thing. So I say that to say that once this fight was over, the business had been done, the champion defended, the outcome was what nobody had predicted, but a huge upset, an incredible night. It was Riyadh season. They put on such a production. The whole car was incredible. The energy in the arena or the stadium is unmatched. And now we're in the locker room, and I see Don Charles is just like depleted. The press conference is over. And, you know, he's just dog exhausted. The whole week before the fight week, he had been ill. So he was fighting an illness as well and wasn't able to participate in the media week events. And everybody was speculating, was he sacked? Was there something wrong? Was he going to be in the corner? So all that, just more pressure, more energy drain. So once the fight's over, I mean, this guy It's amazing that he's even able to stand and communicate. So they get back to the hotel. I go back to my flat, and then what happens with Don is he wants to get home. So he is checking out of his hotel. It's like 3:30 in the morning after the fight, after all I've described to you that he's been through and had to give for this moment to occur. And he's on his way to his car. And then, of course, boxing fans, they're fanatics. That's where the word comes from. They're out in the lobby. They're out in front of the hotel. They want to get pictures. They want to get a moment of your time. They want to shake your hand. They want to get autographs. And so Don, at this hour, is still so gracious, such a man of the people and appreciative of those who appreciate his work, that he's stopping, signing autographs, taking pictures, shaking hands, still willing to give of his energy and time to the family of boxing. And as he's making his way to the car, he's done this for a dozen people already, and then one guy emerges from the crowd and wants a picture. And even, his son, who is looking out for him, who wants, is like, I got to get my dad home. He knows how burnt out he is. He knows how much rest he needs. Just another picture is like, oh, man, come on, man. Just do it next time, whatever. And he's telling his dad, like, come on, let's just go. It's time to go. You've done enough. And he's like, no, I'm going to take a picture with this man. He's come down here, wants a photo, so we're going to do that. And he does that, takes that photo. He finally gets home, gets some rest, and I meet up with him in the next day or two. We have a breakfast, have a conversation about all that's happened and the magnitude of the night and whatever. And then he springs on me that he has been messaged by multiple people in the last couple of days, and people are asking him, does he know who he's taking this photo with? Does he know that he's in this photo with this guy? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know this guy. What are you guys talking about? He's like, that is Sharaf Muhammad. That is the president's son that took a photo with you. He's posted it. And, he's the president's son in Ghana. And Don's like, oh, I had no idea. That's cool. That's great. So what? Fine. Whatever. You know what I mean? Not like whatever, like it doesn't matter, but, he's glad that he did take that photo and stopped and had that interaction. But, who's to say what that means or if that anything comes of that. So Don has already been investing in Ghana. He's already put money into this country and is creating a place for himself here. And he had already planned to come to Ghana post-fight as part of his relaxation and recovery time after all this event has taken place and to prepare for the next camp, which is always right around the corner. And so he arrives at the airport in Ghana to do his stuff, and he is met by a military escort. They're met at the gate, at the airport. He's like, what is this? What's going on? They take care of him, get his bags. They usher him through security, no problem, through the border, very easy. Like a diplomat, really.
Like the VIP is.
VIP champion status, ambassador of boxing, and to the continent that he is. And this is, of course, because of Sharaf having been
taking a picture,
moved by the fact that Don took the time to take the picture with him, not knowing who he was, and saw the kind of heart that Don has. And so from that moment on, Sharaf and Don were friends, and he had a wonderful experience in Ghana at the time, and I couldn't make it. I would have loved to come that time, but the American passport situation with the visa and all this was crazy, and I was running around London trying to get my visa together. It was not happening. You needed a yellow fever shot. That was not happening in time, and it just wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be the time for me to come, but Don came back and just raved. By the time he had the beauty of the country, the Mahamas, so welcoming, so generous, they look after him properly, and it couldn't have enough good things to say about them or his experience or the way he was treated. So I was like, okay, well, this is amazing. And then a few weeks after that, Muhammad came to London. Brought the crew, his brothers and cousins came with him. I met them. We had, meetings that were of substance about boxing and what boxing in Ghana could do and what it could mean globally and connections that could be made to bring it to the forefront. So we spent some days together. We all hit it off. It was an incredible time. And we said, obviously, I've got to come to Ghana. I've never even been to the continent.
What?
this is outrageous. But I've got to come through the door. I've got to arrive at the gate. So this is decided when we're in London. And so time wears on. Another camp, as they always do, comes up. And this one is for Dubois Parker. And that is another fight that will be in Saudi this time and not London. And so Don invites Sharaf and the crew to Saudi to watch Dubois Parker. This is the second defense of the IBF title that Dubois defended for the first time against Anthony Joshua. Another fight of huge magnitude. Now it's in Riyadh. We're excited that the crew is coming from Ghana. They're pulling up. We're gonna get it in. Let's have a fight week that's fun. And tragedy strikes on the Thursday before the fight. Dubois falls ill. Ultimately has to pull out of the fight. And of course, Sharaf's already in town. Sharif, all the guys, everybody is there.
Waiting.
And the fight is not happening, at least not for Dubois. The card's still going on, but what a massive disappointment, right? And I'm in town also, and Don is dealing with that, so he can't really cater to Sharaf and the team the way he would like to. Can't really show him around or bring him things because he's so busy tending to his fighter and dealing with this issue. So fortunately, I am there, and I get to show Sharaf around a little bit. We have dinner, me and him and the whole team have an incredible time in Riyadh. And now, as we're parting ways, it's like, when am I getting to the gate? When am I walking through the door? And there is a massive fight on for the Independence Night in Ghana, right? Which is March 6th.
Jamestown.
And so Sharaf mentions that. He's like, we're going to try to get you there for that. What a day. If I'm going to arrive on any day for the first time on the continent and in Accra nonetheless, should it not be on Independence Day? Should that not be the time that I arrive at the gate and walk through the door? And indeed, he made that happen. He went out of his way to facilitate everything, arrange everything. And so it was myself on my own originally, and then I mentioned it to Don, and he mentions it to his son, George, who had also never been to the continent. Now, mind you, Don is Nigerian born.
Interesting.
But
has he been
George,
to Nigeria?
He's Nigerian born. Who do you mean, George? George, his son, is British born.
Okay.
And has never been to the continent. And he promised his son, Don did to George, that one day he would take him to Africa. And he still hadn't done it. George is in his 30s, right? So he mentions to George that I'm going, and George wants to go, so then it's going to be me and George. And Don, he's got fighters to tend to. He can't make it. He's like, you guys go ahead, whatever. And as life often unfolds this way, if you have a good woman in your life, sometimes you got to slap some sense into you. So Don tells his lady that George and I are going to Ghana. It's going to be George's first time. It's going to be Radio's first time. They've never been on the continent. Sharaf Muhammad's making it happen. Is happy for them. And she's like, are you crazy? You've got to take your son to the continent. You got to go with them. Tell these fighters you'll be back in a few days. Everybody's going to be fine. But Don's such a workaholic. He's so focused on his mission and his obligation to his fighters and the team that he just doesn't think that he can ever take a break. And he thinks he has to be there for everybody. And that's the kind of trainer you want. But also, this is the kind of lady you want in your corner, to tell you when it's time for you to go out and do something for yourself and make sure that your family promise is kept. And so, of course, Don heeds her word, and now it's the three of us. And we're all coming to Ghana together. It's a situation I couldn't ask for a better one. It is ideal, right? So now it's me and Don and George. We're all on the same flight. We're on the same plane. We leave London together. It is an incredible experience. And the fact that it's both George and I's first time to the continent, and that Don gets to be the OG, his son is there with him, and he's my big brother, and I'm there with him, and he is flying with us into the continent, into Accra. is just an amazing thing. And the same experience he had when he came on his own, Sharaf and the Muhammad family extended the same courtesies, rolled out the same red carpet. We were met at the airport. They ushered us through everything. They took care of everything, had it all set up. And from that moment on, I'm just experiencing the country.
How was it? The first impression?
The first impression, listen, so the truth is, I don't have an experience that everyone would have because I was so properly looked after by the government of the country. Yeah. So my first impression was incredible how generous and kind everyone is. And I thought maybe this is just because who I'm with and who's looking after me. But very quickly, I had to interact with people who, are just working, who may not know who I'm with or why I'm there, and they're just doing their job day to day. I'm just another person. And they had the same attitudes. They were as generous, as kind, as happy and energetic, wanting to help, wanting to be a part of a good experience, knowing that I'm coming from abroad. And so I couldn't have felt more at home immediately. And I knew, before I even left London, I knew I'm going to be filming this. This is going to be something I document, that it will be archived for the ages, for my family, for me to look back on in days to come, and hopefully for the world to see my perspective and my experience here. Because what is important is that people like myself, younger and older, who haven't either been to the continent of Africa or haven't invested the time to really determine, especially for a black American who has been cut off from his roots, where he may originate, where these characteristics in your personality may come from. These features that you have may be associated with a certain region in the continent. And we as black Americans don't often put that as a priority, as something that we need to know about ourselves. We think of ourselves as a bit separate, and if we're honest, Africans think of us as a bit separate. So we need to make that connection and understand that we are all one family globally, whether it be in the Caribbean, the UK, America, China. I don't care where you find black people. We are
from Africa,
family, and we are from this continent, and really all people are from this continent, but boy, we're a lot closer to the heart of it, aren't we? So we need to make sure that we don't become disconnected from our root. We don't need to find division geographically in our family. If you live in Boulevard C and your brother lives on Boulevard Z, doesn't mean there's a lot of letters in between you, but it don't mean that you're not family. Doesn't mean that that's not your brother. These artificial boundaries that rulers and dictators and governments have drawn around the world are nothing more than a fence. They don't separate.
But why do you think so? Because I've heard interview with Floyd where they asked him, does he consider himself as an African? He said, no, he's an American.
Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah.
Well, listen, that is not an uncommon perspective in America. And Floyd is entitled to how he feels, right? Whether he feels that way or not, it is true and untrue. Yes, of course he's an American. He's an American citizen. If he feels allegiant to the American government and to that piece of geography where his family is from, where his father made a name for himself in the sport of boxing, where he calls himself TBE, one of the most famous boxers of all time, certainly the most enriched boxer of all time, then why shouldn't he have some patriotic feeling about the country that he knows, where he was raised, where he made his name? The reality, however, is no matter how you feel about where you are at, where you're from ain't changing. Now, how much you are interested in investing in finding out where those roots lead you and whether or not you want to facilitate that connection, that's every man and woman's decision for themselves.
I like that.
But for me, it's absolutely necessity for me to know, and my perspective on the world on whole is it can only enrich you. Like, okay, you're American and you're South African, or you're American and you are Namibian, or you're American and you're Ghanaian or Nigerian. You're absolutely entitled to understand the totality of your existence. We are not a small, finite people. No matter whether you're black or not, there's a lot of people who go into making up one person. And if in America we have been intentionally disconnected from our people, then I believe, at the very minimum,
what do you mean by intentionally?
We have been intentionally disconnected from our people. I believe that we have an obligation to ourselves to know ourselves, to know more about ourselves, and then you can decide how much you want to engage that. But it can't diminish your love of America or what you've accomplished as an individual because you now recognize that you're a part of a bigger whole. It doesn't make you a lesser single. It really expands you from my perspective, but everybody has to come to that on their own. And we know what was intentional about it. We know that this is not a mistake that we are disconnected from the continent, from the diaspora, because they would hope those who would colonize Africa and those who would enslave Africans in America, that connection would be broken so that the bond couldn't be strong, so that if revolution comes, we don't have the ability to overcome the oppressor. So the oppressor is interested in making sure that you are disassociated from anything that might be a power nucleus. This is what I mean by intentional, and it is in fact then perpetuated by ourselves, by a mentality that we were indoctrinated with by our oppressor to make us believe that these connections are not important. They're important because they're your power base. There is something, a resource of energy you can tap into, an expansion of who you are. And only those who have been oppressed, who have an oppressive mentality, would not recognize that expansion is growth, and that connection is power, and that this base that you are a part of, whether you acknowledge it or not, only makes you bigger and stronger and more of a threat to whomever the oppressor is, which is why that intentional separation has been something that has been a priority for oppressors all over the world.
Interesting. Where have you been so far? Have you gotten time to go to the dungeons, Amaerica, etc. in Ghana?
Not this time. I've been in Accra primarily. I've experienced a lot of the elements of the boxing community here. I've experienced the cultural expression of artists. I've experienced the food. I've experienced the government. And so there's only so much you can do in one visit. But I did extend my stay because Don and George, they went back Sunday, which was 4 days after we arrived. You know, everybody's got to get back to their lives. They've got to have families to look to and attend to. And Don's got fighters who are just waiting for him to return. But me, I had to sit them down on the morning of the day we were all meant to leave and go back to London together. I had to tell them, I'm not leaving. I'm staying. I one day hope to give that speech and then head to my home, my property, my land here. As
really,
I'm staying. But this time I'm not staying, but I stayed long enough to have a more full experience and have time to have more of the country and be able to absorb it and understand it and take my time and meet people and have conversations. If I hadn't extended my stay some 8 days, we wouldn't be sitting here on my last day of this journey together. It took this long for us to find each other, and I found many other people along the way, and I knew that I needed to do that. And I had the opportunity to do it, and being free in the way that I have conducted my life and the way that I have organized my obligations, that they are at my whim, where I can, if indeed I feel the need to change my plans, then I'm the only person who I need to get approval from. And on this day, I was like, approved.
I like that. Now, I asked you that question if you've been to the dungeon, because I think one of your most favorite and most famous interviews with Deontay Wilder, where he addressed the enslaved Africans and what they've been through. They've been snatched, from the continent to the diaspora and been fighting there for a number of years now. Now you're back to the gate, like you mentioned.
That's right.
Yeah. Can we just speak on that topic a bit? What our brothers in the diaspora have been going through and why you're coming back and having a first-time experience yourself.
It's interesting that you mentioned that particular space, because I am, as I told you, documenting my trip, and I have a series called The Last Station, and it has many meanings, and it depends on where you are which of those meanings apply. So I had this epiphany when I was in Brixton, which is South London. Now I'm going to remind you, obviously, I'm an American, and I come from Oakland, California, which is Northern California on the west coast of America. And in that community, I grew up with rich culture, people from all over the world, but also a very definitive Black American experience. And there is a richness to a community that is like that. And because I haven't lived there most of my adult life, when I return, every time I go back over the many years since I had last lived there, it seemed like a little bit less of that culture was palpable. A little bit less of that community was still in existence. It was harder to find those connections to my childhood that made me feel at home, that made me remember what it was like growing up there. And so when I came to Brixton, I found that feeling again. I was kind of reconnecting with Oakland and Brixton, which also connected the synapses in my mind, was like, oh, yet another example of how we are all connected globally. And these Black people and these Jamaicans and the Windrush community that is in South London, living in Brixton, that is cooking there and expressing their art and music and the scene, and the nightlife and all the stuff that's happening in the roads. All of that is not dissimilar to the community I grew up in, across the Atlantic, across the country, on what would appear to be a whole nother world, but so directly associated with this one, because we are all family and we recreate our space based on our energy. And that made me believe that it was necessary to make sure that people could recognize that connection from America to England, and the Black Brits that are over here, and the Africans and Jamaicans and all the people who make up the multitude of cultural experiences in London. And when you think of England, you think of London, you think of Europeans, of course. But we are everywhere. And that was a pocket that really spoke to me. So I started to formulate the idea that, I need to do something where I can express this. And my medium is communication through verbal expression and through film. And so I decided to shoot a show that would allow me to express that connection. And that show I titled The Last Station because on the Victoria line, on the famous British tube system, Brixton is the last station south.
Interesting.
But it's also just the last station that I found my connection to my first station. So every station is like the last station, which is very much connecting me right back to the first station. So I'm continuing on my journey, almost as if you think of it as a train ride. And as you pull in and you experience what this station has to offer, you journey on to the next location. And for me, I'm always carrying that last station with me to the next destination. And so from Brixton, here we are in Ghana. And not dissimilar to what I'm experiencing in Ghana is what I experienced in Brixton, which is not dissimilar to what I experienced as a child in Oakland. All of these trails and rails are connected with this electricity of energy that creates the spirit of the family. So as I stay on these tracks, and who knows where the next station that is on the horizon, I know that I carry those last stations with me into the future.
Did you by any chance did a DNA test to see where your, most of your DNA is coming from, or you've not done that?
No, I don't trust these white folks. I'm not about to just give them my DNA. You have to get a court order for my DNA. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even remember all the stuff that I might have done. People already are getting arrested for shit they don't even remember. There's a lot of things I don't remember. I am certainly not about to volunteer my DNA to any private industry, and I'm not giving it to the government unless you demand it. So if you want mine, you got to come get it. Absolutely not. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it with legwork, the hard way. I'm gonna do it with connection, which I have a lot more trust in than somebody's lab and I like that digital reservoir of DNA.
I like that. You've seen a lot of talent come from Africa, right? That made the UFC what it is. People like Adesanya, people like Francis. They're all coming from Africa, right? And you coming here to the source where all these stars are coming from, what is it that you've seen, in this space in terms of the youth, the potential, or even what do you think about boxing in general and the trajectory of boxing in Ghana that you've come and experienced?
Well, you mentioned all these people coming from Africa, and you mentioned the dungeons, and I remind you that the dungeon was the last station for the Black American. Those shores from which our ancestors were taken, stolen, and brought to the United Kingdom, brought to the Caribbean, brought to America, for them, that dungeon is their last station. So I must revisit that place, that specific place, on a visit here, because it is in keeping with the journey that I'm on now as the product of that experience, but also it is an acknowledgement of what began the disconnect, their last station. The Africans who weren't taken don't know in their time what the experience was of the Black American, what they went through when those ships lost sight, when those ships disappeared into the ocean. They don't know what the experience for their brothers and sisters were. And when their brothers and sisters reached the shore after a generation or two, those African children who are imprisoned and enslaved in a land not their own and intentionally disconnected from their roots don't know the experience of their very close relatives and where they come from and what that means to them and who they are. I live in a time where I can make those connections on both sides. And so when Deontay Wilder is talking about 400 years, well, yes, I know what he's referencing because I'm a learned Black American and have been living that experience as he has. And he was living it in the deep South. He's from Alabama. God bless. I'm so grateful I'm not from the deep South and certainly not Alabama because the history there is wicked. So what he's expressing is passion, pain. But we were in a moment where there was global eyes on that moment and global attention on a fight because he's fighting a Brit. And when you say 400 years to an American, certainly a Black American, they immediately know what you're referencing. But the Black Brit doesn't necessarily. The white Brit certainly is less likely to. And then pick a country around the world, the Russian, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Latin American, they may not have any idea what you're talking about just from that single reference. So when I asked that question, it was for clarification. And he experienced it as a challenge. And the moment that was created, as tense as it was, as volatile as it was, served the purpose. So the irony of that is if he had not responded the way he did and just given a eloquent answer, a comprehensive response to my question, does it make that impact? Does it get that attention? Does it become a meme? Does it change my life? Does it sell another 20,000 tickets for his fight? No, because nobody's listening. So in that moment, God had a hand. He made the world listen. And because of my reaction to his reaction, we got through that moment without it being violent, without it being embarrassing, and with it attracting the attention of the whole world. That's how things happen. You have to not only conduct yourself with good intention, which was my asking the question with good intention, but if it goes sideways or a direction you're not expecting or even comes back at you in a way that may be aggressive or an affront or may be threatening or even disrespectful, how you then handle that moment
react to it
will create the moment that comes next. And so however uncomfortable it was for me in the moment, however difficult it might have been for me socially immediately after the moment, what we did together in that moment created this amount of awareness and attention that is far bigger than and more important than any discomfort I might have felt as a result of it.
I like that. And you guys have been, connecting after that interview. You have his number. You are very close. You have access to him. Would you invite him to Ghana now that you've been here yourself?
Absolutely. Listen, I'm not just inviting Deontay Wilder. I'm inviting Black America. Anybody whose number I have. And listen, it's important for the reasons I've described, for Black Americans in particular, but I'm inviting the world. Anybody at the sound of my voice who understands my language or can read the subtitles in their own, you're welcome here. You should come here and experience Ghana. You should understand the history and the culture and the rich people and the energy that they have to impart to you here. No matter where you're from or what your cultural background is, Ghana is a place that you should experience. So absolutely. And will I more personally reach out to people like Deontay Wilder and family and friends who I have a more tuned ear, who will answer my calls and I can convince them one-on-one? Absolutely. Best believe it. Best believe it. And I believe that they will take me up on the invitation. And they will be happy they did so when they are greeted by you and the people in this country.
I like that. I want to know your culture shock. You must have one. Obviously, you're coming from an advanced society, infrastructure-wise, whatnot, and you coming to Ghana. The world knows us to be a little underdeveloped or even developing nation. What would you say are the 3 culture shock you've experienced since touchdown on the 6th of March, which is the day of the Ghanaian independence?
I don't get shocked because I absorb energy. This may be infrastructure-wise not at the level of technological advancement of other places. It may not have been engineered as a city to the level of development of places I've been, but it is the evolution of the people that are most important. The infrastructure of the mind and the spirit, the soul of the country can build all of those brick and mortar things, can design all of those roads and bridges. It requires a spirit that evolves the country. So what I have been met with is a very elevated spirit of person, a very elevated and intellectual, advanced person that is good in their heart and has the desire to welcome those from abroad and to conduct themselves in a way that is impressive and respectful and excellent. So for me, there is no differential between what you might call an advanced country and this one. These people are advanced people. I would take a well-designed and engineered road-mapped mind over a freeway. That mind can build 1,000 freeways, but that freeway can't build the mind. And that's what we have here in Ghana. So if you have the idea that where you're from is more advanced or you have more technology available to you, don't forget that a lot of the resources that allow you to have that technology come from this country, that are mined here, in the same way that your mentality to be able to advance yourself personally in whatever country you're in also originates here. You're from here. And the very roadmap of your mind was engineered here. And then you take that spirit and that genealogy, those ancestors someplace else, and build something more significant, what you think, than what exists here, and you think that makes you better because you're over there doing it. It still came from here. This is your battery. So don't come here and get culture shocked. Come here and get culture energy. Get the resource from the source, and then reallocate that energy back here. If you can do it there, bring it here. If you learn how to do it someplace else, the fact that you had the capacity to learn started here. So bring it home. Do it here. If you think your society where you are in some other country is more advanced, well, come back here and advance this one in the way in wherever you have to contribute. That's what I've done. What I am able to contribute is this. So we're doing it right now. Are you culture shocked? No. Because we're doing the same thing our own way. And here we are circulating that energy and that electricity.
I like that. Now, obviously, let's speak about boxing. You've worked, with all the biggest boxing, organization in the world. They've done Saudi Arabia, USA, or name them. But for some reason, most of these fighters are coming from Africa. But there's never been one big fight of the magnitude that even Wembley happening in the continent of Africa. Why is it like that, based on your own experience and observation?
Partially, it's because of what you just mentioned. The reality is, you do need some infrastructure to invite a substantial amount of people to your country, to house them, to feed them, to get them to and from the airport, to secure them. You need the ability to host an event of that magnitude. And just like the Olympics go around from every 4 years and end up sometimes in countries that don't have that infrastructure, when they got the contract to host the Olympics, they created. Well, this is what is needed in Africa. You need the contract so that you can create the space. You need the money so that you can build what is necessary and properly, so you don't use slave labor to do it, so that the people of the country are not disaffected by the event taking place, where those at the top can take credit and shine, but those at the bottom are buried literally in the foundation of the buildings that this event created. We cannot have that. And that's on us. We got to make sure that we don't do that to each other. Because if we get these resources from abroad, or we get a major fight and networks are invested, promoters are paying money, and they leave it to the country to build the arena or build the hotels or create the freeways, whatever is needed to host the event, we have to make sure that we don't take advantage of our own people and turn our own work and our own efforts into something that is negative experience for those who did it, and then stand on top of literally their bodies that are buried in the cement and try to take credit. That will not reward you. The ancestors will not tolerate that. And that is a mindset that we need to get out of. And nobody abroad is going to get that out of us for us. That's on us. So the reason that it hasn't had an event of this magnitude yet is clearly because we weren't ready. So let's get ready. It's time. We should be ready. And the world right now can look to Africa, and if we are prepared for the moment, we can take this country and this continent as a whole and be a superpower. Because look how trifling these superpower leaders are all over the world. Are they special? Are they advanced? Are you culture shocked looking at Donald Trump or Putin? No, absolutely not. Are they somehow genius and we're idiots? Clearly not. You don't need to be all that intelligent, do you, to run a massive, major superpower country. And if you think that you don't have the capacity here with all these different leaders in all these different African nations to create a superpower of a continent, then you're insane. The problem is us. We have to unite. We have to find where our leadership is at its best, with its best intention and ability to execute, and come together. And then Africa will have the ability to defend itself, to protect its resources, and to grow its economy and grow its people and grow its society and grow its infrastructure and have a united states, if you will, of Africa that defends and depends on each other. Once that happens, the whole world order shifts on its axis overnight. That is our task. Nobody can do that for us, nor should they. It's on us.
I like that.
So the answer to your question is it'll happen when we're ready.
And gentleman that I interviewed spoke about how we can get united as black people, and he advised, or he thinks that we doing business and making money together could be that catalyst that would, trigger our connection and our bond. What do you think about that notion?
It's unity. It is unity. It is trust. I'm going to say trust again. We have to be able to trust each other. We have to be able to turn our back on our brother and know that behind our gaze, things are being handled appropriately and in our best interest. I should be able to look away from you and not worry about you picking my back pocket. I have to understand that, of course, if I think that we are all family from America to the UK to Africa, well, surely these African nations that are bordering each other on the same continent, are you not family? Doesn't mean that you are not of your tribe. Doesn't mean that you do not have differences in culture and expression and language and food and everything. All of those things can remain and sustain. It doesn't have to be a violent or adversarial division. It's all rich culture. Imagine if we just appreciated and shared each other's experience. Then instead of 100 or 200 different languages or food menus or expressions of art, instead of thinking of it as those separate entities, imagine thinking of that as something that all comes together as just different pieces of the puzzle of a mosaic is what it is. And we are again in the mindset that these divisions are real. These divisions are not real. The only thing that is real is unity. Division is implemented by those who benefit from disconnection and separation. And the world benefits from our being disconnected and disassociated and at odds with each other. Why is everybody in the world so invested in Africa never uniting? Why? If it wasn't something that would change the world overnight, if it wasn't something that was a threat to the existing powers, they wouldn't care. People don't care if goldfish unite. Have you ever heard of anybody making sure that frogs don't unite? You ever heard of anybody caring about that? No, because there's no threat to anybody. People don't even think, like, the fact you laughed when I said it is because it is absolutely irrelevant. Well, you are relevant. I am relevant. And together we are a power. And that's why people are invested in making sure that we don't understand the relevance of each other.
I like that. And I know, being a very good friend with David Aloka,
Cheeky Dave. You can call him Dave Aloka, which I appreciate, but he's Cheeky Dave to me.
We spoke behind cameras and, he identified the opportunities available here in Ghana. And I don't know if you want me to say, but bought a penthouse here in Cantonment as an investment. Are you looking to invest yourself? I mean, obviously, he has told you his portfolio, his whatever that he is looking to do here in Ghana. Are you looking at, doing something similar or even,
I'm looking at any opportunity that arises. But at the moment, I'm giving all that I can. It's not about turning a profit or creating a business necessarily. That's not my focus. My focus is to return the energy that I have absorbed. That's it. And how that manifests, who knows? Day to day, what opportunities arise, what might be presented to me as a way that I could have property or involve myself in a business or create something here. But one thing that is absolutely mandatory for me is that anything that I do invest in, whether it be energy or economically here, must be homegrown, it must be home sustained, and it must be something that we then can export to create more value for home. We're not taking things from abroad. We're not developing something elsewhere and taking from the resources here to fund that or to build that. Anything that is happening from me has to originate here, benefit this continent, benefit this country, and then if we're going to make some money off of it, we're going to make those foreign dollars. We're going to get that money from abroad and bring it in. And so many people and businesses come here to extract and then make money elsewhere and leave this country and this continent with nothing or the minimal that they can give to get as much as possible. We're reversing that.
I like that. If you do have any final message before we wrap up to the people watching, your fans, Ghanaians listening and tuning to this show, what would that message be?
Well, anybody who knows me knows I like to have a good time. I am wherever I'm having fun. You will not see me any place doing anything that I do not enjoy. Not for long, anyways. The minute I realize I'm not enjoying it, you're about to see my tail lights. So the fact that not only I came here, but then I extended my stay, and that I'm still here, and now we're talking about me coming back here and what can be developed from here, must mean it's a good time. So if nothing else that I said matters, just come have a good time. You like having a good time? Come have a good time here, because a good time is to be had. And I might have one with you. I'll see you at the airport. I'll see you at the dungeons. I will see you at the cultural center. I will see you at the Nkrumah Memorial. I will see you at the beach. I will see you. because I see the world needs to see Ghana. So if you are willing to put your attention and your gaze and see this country, then I see you, not just as a brother or a sister, but as one who is advanced, who has engineered their mind to make their connection to the roots that we all share. So I see you, come see me.
I like that. Now let's speak about the art. You've been viewing a lot of arts, Ghanaian arts. Also, I'm not sure if you got the time to see some of the female artists and painters here. What do you think about the art scene in Ghana?
I saw an art scene on the next door. I went to the restaurant right before we started this, and I saw paintings, beautiful paintings, just leaned up against the wall, apparently from an exhibition that had just taken place, and some art on the wall. There's art in this room. There's artists everywhere. It flows like a waterfall onto a vast reservoir of art. So yes, I've experienced it, and you can't avoid it. It's everywhere in the dress, people making the clothes, people painting, people making beads, people doing all types of expressions from their spirit that they want the world to recognize visually or textually or experience the music. There's unending amounts of art here, and however you experience the country will have something to do with the type of art that engages you, what you love. I think we look for art in the world, but what speaks to us finds us. And so, yes, I've been found by many artists here.
I like that. So I must say, you sitting right in front of me, I can't even imagine this is a reality right now, and you having this conversation that we're having right now, inviting the world to come here. We've had, Elio Leisure, we've had several people who came to Ghana because of the Year of Return, and that triggered, now the world to know what Ghana is or even what Africa is, and attracting more people to come here. I think it's very important, and I'm sure you going back, you're going to tell, like you mentioned, everybody to come, to experience what you did experience, and I think that's incredible, and I encourage more people to, keep doing that, keep coming, and, doing the work that you're doing.
We're going to tell them.
Yeah.
We're going to tell them. This show is going to go around the world. I'm going to send them the link to your show. There is no limit of people who need to hear this message, who need to understand what awaits them on the continent, and that Africa has a door. Knock on it, show up at the gate, walk through the door, and from here in Ghana, you will find all the roots. When you look at a tree and its roots, it's never just one single line. There are dozens of offshoots and different directions you can go once you get to the root. So this is the door, this is the trunk, this is the bottom right here that you start at, and then once you get to the center at the ground level where you can be welcomed in, you can look around and go any direction. That's what we will do when we open that door.
I like that. Thank you so much for, coming on the show, sharing the message that you did share. I really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And as much as it means to you to be sitting here across talking to me, it means as much, if not more, for me to be sitting here across talking to you.
Yeah, now I want to show you one thing. Let's shake it one more time. Now in Ghana, when we do that and you're letting go, we snap it like that.
Okay, you got that from us. First of all, you got that from us. I appreciate you think you made that up. Let me tell you what, that's Black American shit right there. So take that. I'm not even going to charge you for that. Let's run with that. Just know, that's the root on the other side of it.
I like that. Thank you so much. All right, guys. I hope you did enjoy. Like, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more amazing
boy tried to snap on the pound like they made that up. Man.